podcast. I am Jürgen Smorgasbord.
And I am Jim with a G.
Today, we have truly learned the meaning of getting cancelled.
Yeah, and I've heard about bee allergies, but this is ridiculous. Now you can't take it back.
That's right.
Unless you edit the episode, which you tend to do.
You've never edited one of the episodes, Jim,
God, no.
Isn't that right?
I do not have the attention span for that, Jürgen.
I mean, I just add the intro and the outro.
I know what I said. I stand by it.
So, do we recommend to our dear listeners to watch today's episode, Hated in the Nation?
Nah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, nah. It's not a strong no. And I think if you're into this sort of stuff, sure, I'll allow it.
Yeah, no, I personally have a major weakness in my heart for 6 out of 10 sci-fi movies.
That is... Is sci-fi the prime genre here, though?
I'd say so.
Okay, interesting. I feel like there's something to discuss.
I'm trying to do this more regularly now. This is the podcast where we watch Black Mirror in reverse order, season reverse order, but regular episode correct order within the seasons. And that's the concept of our podcast.
It is.
That's right.
Yeah.
Trigger warnings for this episode are basically suicide and gore.
Yeah. Not necessarily in that order.
Well, sort of gore, suicide, gore.
I feel like it's gore, suicide, suicide, implied gore, but I guess that probably doesn't count.
Yeah. Editing Jürgen here, we completely forgot that there's also some very heavy insect body horror.
Okay, well, fair enough.
So, what happens in this episode?
So we have a court hearing.
Yeah, we are in the dark future of Britain, but a bit later.
Yeah, which is largely like the dark present of Britain. And the dark present of Britain 10 years ago as well. That's
right. I had a lot of misapprehensions of what this episode was going to be going in. So a lot of these early notes of mine are not applicable.
You do have quite a few notes there.
Yeah, no. But what happens in this episode is very essentially, we start with a murder mystery because a journalist who wrote something that we'll never find out what it actually is about a disabled person gets killed. A detective is like, wonder what this is about.
Yeah, I think there's a very obvious person it is based off, and I do not know her name.
Huh, I don't know who it is based on.
It's just like a person in the English press who is very annoying and people hate her. And she profits off of that.
I mean, that could describe just about anyone in Britain.
These days, but she's been doing it for a while. Anyway.
I guess that could describe just about anyone in Britain. And she gets murdered, and we have a somewhat slow burning mystery, but not that slow burning. Surprisingly, we were worried about that it was going to be very slow, and it really wasn't.
Because then also a rapper gets killed.
Yeah,
because that rapper made fun of a child on TV.
Yeah, and if we've been paying close attention, to be fair, it wasn't very funny when he did that.
It was very good. I don't know. I think he might have been the best character in the episode.
Yeah, well, I have another contender, actually.
Okay, yeah, very fair.
And both of these people have been killed by synthetic bees burrowing into their brain and fucking around.
Yeah.
And at this point, we pretty much pieced together that these people were killed because people were tweeting #death2space, their name and their picture, which, as it turns out, is a game set up by a dark, mysterious figure in which tweets have consequences.
Tweets have consequences. It's terrifying. And then we are followed up by a lady who tweeted a picture of herself faking pissing on a war memorial at truly the worst imaginable timing.
Yeah, rip to her, because we have like a fairly slow burn, because this is the part of the episode where we go from this is a person who takes over a single bee to the swarm is coming for you.
Yeah, we go from murder mystery to horror for, I want to say 20 minutes.
Yeah, something like that. And It is at this point that the thing leaks out, and people are like, "Oh, we're going to kill the Prime Minister."
Immediately, which is...
Immediately.
It struck me that they do use the term Chancellor, and I kept being like, is... Because that's not what the Prime Minister is called.
No.
So I wondered if that was just...
I didn't catch that. That's odd.
Yeah, so at first I was like, I don't know British titles very well apart from Prime Minister. So there's a part of me that was like, is this a specific government institution?
No, it's clearly the
It's
PM.
clearly the Prime Minister. I think they just didn't want to make an episode about killing the Prime Minister.
Yeah, what's this? This must have been in Tony Blair's age still?
It's just somewhere around
Maybe
there.
Boris Johnson.
No, I don't think Boris Johnson.
He was right after. Oh no, Theresa May.
Theresa May, yeah.
It must have been either Blair or May.
I think it must have just been about the transition period there, yeah.
And
Quite a thing, right?
yeah, so I guess it was probably written with more Blair than May in mind.
Yeah.
And he is actually my second contender for best character.
Also, yes, actually, you know what? I think I might have to give that to you. Although, rapper making fun of child dancing live, notably, because I thought it was just a recorded video of a child dancing poorly, but no, it's
oh no, see, no, I think the video was recorded, but then they had the child live backstage, and they were just splicing the feet of the rapper dissing the child, and the child getting extremely sad in real time, just right next to each other. Great cinema. This episode, I would say, has like quite strong comedic chops and like
it's very surgical, right? Like
yeah, but like every now and then they get in there and like really get you. And at this point the investigation sort of continues on, and we're like, who could have had a motive? And eventually we track down a lady who's got cyber-bullied into basically literally wanting to kill herself.
Yeah, attempting even.
Luckily failing, or unluckily as this episode may make the case out to be.
That's complicated, but for the moment she lives because she's rescued by her creepy roommate.
Yeah, well... yeah, the implication is shallow, but it's there. And the unlucky part of this, I'm not for her death. However, the way in which this is bad is that her creepy roommate decides that everyone who cyberbullies must die.
Yeah.
So, at this point, like there's a few like minor steps, but essentially, the investigators are completely like irrelevant at this point because the second... Alright, the investigators have one more job to do, which is track down the place of this guy and plug his hard drive into the system and execute his code to reverse engineer his taking over of all the hives, which he's done between the third and fourth murder.
Yes.
The TM I don't think we ever see dying, so it's as good as it's anyone's guess if that ever went through. And it is unclear, it is unclear whether it is like there's like a temporal link between one of the guys from the investigators tweeting at the guy they want to that's their suspect and him setting this up, or if it's just like the dominoes falling. In any case, they take his hard drive, execute his code, and whoops, they institute phase 2, in which everyone who's used the hashtag gets murdered.
Yeah, which is about like 370,000 people, I think they mentioned in the episode.
Yeah. And crucially, this takes the investigation of our British FBI guy, who, when they're like, but what if he wants us to do this? Goes, execute the code, and executes the code by pressing enter.
Yeah, the guy who notably has no tech ability.
Absolutely none.
Yeah, and who's like, maybe this like master hacker who has stolen what must be millions of mechanical bees from us. Maybe he could have an ulterior motive to just happening to leave his hard drive out.
Yeah, no. But... you know, no time to investigate.
Absolutely
time to save the Prime Minister.
Yeah, which is...
and yeah, at that point, like, we don't actually get to see the mass slaughter, which is good. But we do end up in like a Hall of the Dead. At the like very conclusion of the episode, where there's just like body bags all over, and the inquiry closes, and one of the cops tracks down the guy who did it and kills him, probably with a bee, though I personally hope with a gun, because that's more civilized.
I don't think it happens with a bee, because I think if Charlie Brooker wrote that, he would feel the need to like show a bee on like her arm or something like that.
And yeah, that's the episode.
That's the episode. Yeah, like it's... So I will start with something positive. I do think it uses its runtime completely fine.
Yeah, this is movie length, and it is a movie-sized story.
Yeah, it's not the deepest thing in the world. I think it thematically lacks some stuff, but I'm sure we'll get into that. Yeah. But like stuff is happening, and I'm going like, okay, yeah, this is like an enjoyable enough B movie to watch.
Yeah, no, like I was like
B movie. I see. I did a thing there, but I didn't think of it at the time.
I was really trying to just pass over.
I know.
It, and you're just completely undercutting that impulse.
Like I'm trying to think of another B pun right now, and I'm kind of coming up short. That really stings.
Anyway, I was like pausing the movie like a third of the way through when we had already found out all of the things about like, oh, it was a bee, because it seemed in the beginning like that was going to be the mystery, and then they're like, oh yeah, no, this is the mystery. We set it up quite obviously because we're going to play our hand quite quickly, and
which like that's completely fine, right?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. But like, I was like, man, I can see this coming a mile away, and it's going to be the end of the episode, but it's not, and that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't expect it to just like go where it did, because it is just like a fairly like fast-paced, like massive escalation.
Yeah.
And it's
like what is it? It's like 5 minutes of setup. Of like, here's a hated person, she gets killed. Here's our protagonists, right? Here's our buddy cops coming to the scene. And then it's like 15 minutes later we have, this is why it's happening, and this is how it's happening.
Yep.
Just done. It's a novel approach to doing mystery.
Yeah.
With the like greater motive still being left for the final twist. But like yeah, it's interesting. And I think, like, I'm going to say this. I think it kind of subverts my expectations that Black Mirror is very blatant with its twists to start with. Like, so full honesty, I did not remember this episode at all, except for the two parts that get revealed early, that the bees are the killing method, and that they're targeting people who are hated on social media. Those are literally the two things I remembered. But like, about like, I want to say an hour in, I'm going to like, oh, okay, right, this is, like, when we're talking to the lady who got cyberbullied, I go, oh, okay, right, I understand what's going to happen now, right? Because it's still not the subtlest thing, but, like, I don't think the twist is bad. I think it is completely fine.
Yeah, no. Like, when, like, the bees are, like, swarming towards the safe house, like, it is very clear that we are, like, it is at that point that everything in the movie, like, retrospectively becomes a horror movie, because suddenly all the information we've been given leads up to this absolutely terrifying scenario of, like, micro robots just hunting people.
It is, like, a little bit of an interesting, like, it's a bit of a Venn diagram, right? Where it has, like, murder mystery plus horror plus, like, essentially an apocalypse scenario, right? Yeah. It's an interesting melding, and I don't think it works poorly.
No, not at all. Like, it genuinely it's genre bending in a functional way, which is quite unusual for Black Mirror, which like doesn't genre bend that much.
No,
like either it's
commonly,
like
no.
doing itself, or it's doing like a specific genre.
Or when it genre bends, it does it at the like last minute.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that I don't think that counts, right? Like that's
no, that's just a
that's
twist.
Charlie Brooker pointing at the audience and going, "Yeah," like wiggling his eyebrows.
Mhm.
And that, while it might be a genre of its own, we will not count it.
Yeah.
Do you have anything more to say about the like basic plot and such? Because I kind of wanna get into the meat, the thematic juice.
There is like something that I think we should note at this point, which is that there is like a sort of B plot of this being a
plot.
government initiative.
Oh yes, that's true.
Specifically like a government surveillance initiative, which becomes compromised specifically because the government's like, hey, give us a backdoor though. Don't fully encrypt it.
Yeah, like, and it feels like just kind of a dig at the UK being a surveillance state, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't, because I remember it being like, fair enough, yeah, like, that's, like...
That's true.
Yeah, like, it's true, and the specific thing that unfolds in story, which is not much, kind of just goes like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Like,
yeah.
that strikes me as
yeah, so
reasonable.
It is like a minor point, but it is given like a substantive amount of prominence.
Yeah.
But yeah. What do we think this episode is about, Jim?
Stochastic terrorism?
Interesting.
So I was pondering this, right? Because, like, okay, this is going to be interpretation. But something that struck me as I was watching this is, the people who are being targeted, like, the rapper is just kind of vaguely disliked, right? Yeah. The first lady, the evil journalist, right? She's very clearly a stand-in for a very right-leaning English commentator.
Yeah.
And specifically attacks disability rights.
Yeah.
The third person, I guess you could conceive of as, like, being that she's pissing on a war memorial. You could say, like, okay, that's a bit more on the left wing, maybe, if we had to assign it anywhere. But it's
unclear.
Just kind of, yeah, it's just kind of vague.
Influencer nonsense.
I guess so. We never get an impression, to me, that, like...
Yeah, no, she's just, like... She does seem to just, like, be an idiot tourist.
Yeah, kind of. Is she American?
No, I don't think so. She lives, like, in a flat with her friend.
Yeah, that's true. And then the fourth person is...
The Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister.
Who reads so fucking Tory.
Yes. But, like, the thing that struck me, at least in the early episode, right, is that, like, the person who is getting killed is a very, like, clear right-wing leaning journalist, right? And the one person we get to directly talk to, who is part of the, like, yeah, deaf too, I'm not going to say anything about her politics necessarily, but she's a woman of color, right?
Yeah,
like,
and she is a mum advocating for disability rights.
Yeah.
Like in a disability rights
and
group.
immediately read that and be like, interesting.
Yeah.
Right, because, like, what we have seen of stochastic terrorism is that leans very much the other way, for one thing. And the second thing is that generally, in this episode, the people who are targeted, except for the third victim, are people in positions of power, right? Like a celebrity, a very, like, clearly wealthy and infamed perhaps, journalist, and then the Prime Minister. And what strikes me is that, like, I feel like when it comes to stochastic terrorism as it is currently happening, is it targets random, like, it's two groups of people, right? Like, generally speaking, queer women, typically, who right-wing groups find and, like, just target us, look at this queer, let's get them.
Yeah.
Or just random person on TikTok who acted maybe slightly weird, right?
Yeah. Well, I think...
And that's I guess that's not stochastic terrorism, but if we're analyzing it from, like, social media hate, right?
I think at this point it's very important to locate this episode in time.
Yes. Very good.
Which...
2014 or 2015, right? Must be.
Yeah, and, like, Gamergate was, like, happening, but it hadn't reached a popular consciousness yet.
It hadn't reached a popular consciousness, and it hadn't spilled out into that much. From what I vaguely remember, I had not created much actual action, right?
Yeah.
And it strikes me as also being...
2016.
Oh, sorry, 2016. Then.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's also the side of things, right, where we're talking about this from the UK perspective, where hating people in power who still have a lot of power and will not be removed by any sort of popular will. That strikes. Yeah.
No, the Tories are holding on to power, and they will not be gone for another 10 years.
And notably, another person who is very explicitly mentioned is Lord Farrington, an aristocratic pedophile.
Oh.
You know, so it strikes me as being like there's a distinctly British character to this.
Yeah.
In a way that comes through a lot more than most episodes. Like even when we've joked about like, look how British this shit is being, it doesn't come out as much as in this one.
But yeah, I think like specifically in this time, we are still like in the wake of like Twitter being like the place where the Arab Spring happened, right? Like Twitter has like a decidedly more left-wing connotation than it does certainly now. And I think like that, and like we haven't, Gamergate again hasn't hit the popular consciousness yet. So like they are depicting like not necessarily the thing that's happening fully in actuality, because in actuality, you know, it's always been bad for minorities and women on the internet.
Yeah.
But what it is absolutely picking up like the popular perception of what happens with like cancellations, right? Like this is like the era of like John Ronson writing about cancel culture, and like cancel culture generally being like a maybe more in actuality and also definitely in perception being a left-wing thing. So it is depicting the thing as it is in the popular consciousness, with like, you know, like there is also just like, here's a dickhead, so that's more apolitical. But you get it is like very different from today.
But like that is one of those things that like strikes me as kind of like a missing piece, right? Because like the idea of here's a dickhead who's not political, I think that is like a very much a tool, right? Like you find a dickhead who just happens to be of your opposing the people you dislike for whatever reason.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Like right, like there's a lot about talking about like I'm forgetting her name now, and this is really bad. Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Yes. Right, like there's a lot of talk about that, and I'm not gonna go into anything of that, but like just the way
well, they're not even the new celebrity divorce anymore.
That's fair. But yeah, but just like that, the idea of like finding, look at this bad person, she's rude or like cold in some way, frigid perhaps. Yeah. Anyway, would you like to join the incel movement, or like would you like to listen to some Ben Shapiro, right? Like,
or of course TERF.
Yeah, that's another one, right? Like, and that's sort of stuff that happens a lot on TikTok is look at this weird queer, right? Yeah. Like, anyway, that's why we should purge them, right? Like, and that strikes me as like a little bit missing, right? Like, they make this into a very personal story about a guy who saw cyberbullying to a lady he had a hots for, and then went, I'm gonna kill them all.
Which, to be fair, like, as far as like depiction of white guys in techs and their like outlooks goes, like,
it checks
this
out.
Guy is like the most like accurate like villain we have seen maybe in a long time of Black Mirror.
Yes, but also I will admit I have a bit of a pet peeve that he's just like genius hacker that has like, it just has like just a touch of incel fantasy to it, right?
Absolutely.
And
right.
And it just made me go like, ugh.
This episode is very much torn on whether it is on side with this guy or whether it is condemning him, right? Because we never actually get the counter argument, right? Yeah. We never get the like, oh yeah, no, this lady was evil though. We don't even get to know what she did, you know? Maybe she deserved to die. Like, you know, maybe she like killed a disabled person functionally.
I think that's kind of what disappoints me about this episode. Is just because this is why I fundamentally do not recommend this episode. As someone who is like, I don't dislike crime thrillers. Like, I can find them enjoyable. Yeah. But point one, right? This is Black Mirror. We expect a little bit of social commentary.
Yeah.
And specifically, like, point B is that it just feels so hollow. It's like a well-told B movie about like a dude who like it's a bit of a supervillain story, right?
Yeah.
And like, okay, sure, it's enjoyable, but it's just like it says nothing, right? It's like, hey guys, it's bad to tell people to like go kill themselves online, and I'm like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I mean I think the ultimate failing, like, that makes this episode fall short is fundamentally like a lack of contact with reality, right?
Yeah.
It's not telling necessarily who is like most hurt by online hatred.
Yeah, like I think the thing that struck me kind of in the episode was that like you could have tweaked this a little bit because this ends up being a very personal story, right? Like it's about this one guy doing his thing. And I think you could have tweaked it a tiny bit, still keeping the like crime mystery thing going, because I do think they perform the functions of that genre quite well, by just having it be different killers every time, by having it be like a, for lack of a better word, popular movement. I think that could have been like an interesting twist into like stochastic terrorism, right? Like that's kind of what it feels like they're going for. But but then they're like, but we do want to make our incel boy, and I get it because it fits better the serial killer crime show.
And he is also just like a plot device, right? Like
he never speaks.
He doesn't, right? And he is just like a stand-in for like Charlie Brooker making his point of like, yeah, what if it actually meant something, you dickhead?
Yeah.
Right? Because there is like this telling of like these narratives of like how it actually is to experience being cancelled. And it is mortifying, right? It's completely horrifying. Like, it makes perfect sense that this lady goes, I know, I wanted to kill myself because I felt like 1 million people wanted me dead.
Yeah.
We are social animals. That's how our brains are wired.
Yeah, like, it's one of those things that, like... So I have a conflicted view on technology in this episode, right?
Yeah.
Because, like, so immediate thing, right? Social media hate. Very obviously, like, and social media persecution.
Extremely real.
Extremely real.
Bees?
But, like, and, like, on that case itself, yes, okay, the bee thing is maybe a little silly, but I don't mind it that much until it becomes, and then he summons the bee elemental to kill them all.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I do like that as its, like, own thing.
It's a cool idea.
It's a very cool idea, and it's well told, right? It's like, oh, yeah, no, it's like government hubris. It's very classic in a way, but it's, like, woven in, like, in a manner that makes it, like, quite grounded, because it's like, oh, of course the British government wants to break encryption and do mass surveillance. Like, that is happening right now.
But yeah, like, the counterpoint too for me is that, like, yes, social media hate, social media persecution, harassment, etc., all the way to stochastic terrorism, very real things. But it doesn't necessarily feel... And I know it's weird to say, it doesn't feel like it super engages with that, because if...
Well, it engages with it on a level of, like, magical realism, right?
Yeah, which is, like, a way you can do things, for sure. But, like, the thing that strikes me is that, like, the quote-unquote theme or message, whatever, that comes out of the episode is, like, don't wish death on people. And I go, sure, but that's not technological in and of itself.
Yeah, well...
Right, like, you could have had this be a village in the 1600s and everyone going... Sure wish that bitch Mary was dead, and then magical genie does it.
I think that is actually, like, the stronger version of the story, right? Because, like, just, like, straight up, like, oh, yeah, no, there's a weird meteor, and suddenly, like, these sentiments, like, become channeled into, like, drone strike or whatever. Right, that is, like, more... direct a translation of the, like, sort of this concept of, like, a sort of psychic concentration of hatred.
Yeah, I don't know if it's meaningful. Like, listen, if I had that power, there would be a lot of slow-walking pedestrians in the city dead every day. But, like, I don't know, I don't think it matters. I think on the level of, like, if you have that thought, I don't give a shit. if you go online and harass people, that's the bad part.
Yeah.
And that is...
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And I think like there is something that is being grasped at with like, because this is the part where we are actually interested in technology, right? Like there is something that is being grasped at that I don't think like we get a real grip on with this episode. We're like, and like I think about this a lot. We're like previously like you could just go like, oh man, I hate this politician, they're a dickhead, to your friends over a beverage or whatever. And you know, that's extremely normal behavior. This is you know, like gossip is extremely human. Some people say it's good, some people say it's bad, but it's something we do, and generally speaking, it doesn't affect people like that directly. And then we have the social web breaking down like this barrier between like public and private conversation.
Yeah, you no longer have to do any effort to find the hate tornadoes.
Yeah, well, and like it's not even like for you, right? Like,
No.
Sure, like there is like an element of like online hatred that is like personal targeted harassment, but there is another element that like previously was basically just available to authors who got bad reviews, where things are being said about you and you can see them. Like, that is, like, I think a specifically quite distinct thing. And I think, like, I don't think the episode teases these apart, but I do think, like, if we're, like, trying to actually understand this, I do think these are, like, quite distinct things. And I think the latter is, like, just as bad for, like, someone's, like, mental well-being.
Oh, yes.
But, like, that's a failure of the technology.
There's a couple of scenes that, to me, like, genuinely kind of hit good on that specific point, right? Because there's a scene earlier in the episode where bad, evil journalist is, like, spending what appears to be, like, multiple different times in her evening looking at her online hate.
Yeah.
And like, she eats the cake that says fucking bitch on it. That gets, delivered to her place. Like, she is clearly, like, in a weird place about this, clear. Because, like, this is where she gets her success from. That's just how this sort of journalism works.
Yeah.
And she, I just have my doubts that makes you into a good person. Like, one way or another.
But, like, she is sort of, like, a twisted person who, like, she becomes, like, kind of twisted and learns to manage it in a way that unhealthily feeds her.
Yeah, and that
both
I think
literally and metaphorically.
Hey,
because she gets a cake.
She does get a cake. But yeah, like that is an interesting scene, right? Like, and I think they don't say anything explicitly, which for Black Mirror is incredible subtlety. Yeah. She never goes like, "Oh man, I cannot stop looking at these hate comments. They give me profit." But also, like they just kind of display her being weird about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a very powerful thing. And then you have the contrast with victim number 3, who is just idiot 20-year-old tourist, is my vibe on her, right? Who has done a weird thing and is just sitting in her room looking at all of the hate.
Yeah, she is mortified.
Yeah, mortified and being like, oh my god, like, this fucking sucks. Swipe, swipe, swipe.
Yeah.
This really sucks. And, like, that's so interesting, right? Because you have this very young adult woman and this, like, middle-aged woman. Like, it's there's parallels here. There's someone doing, like, cinema, genuinely, and, like, in a way that is socially interesting. But it's not the point of the episode, so we don't get any more.
Though.
Well, it's supposed to be, but it doesn't feel like it goes anywhere with that, right?
Yeah.
Like... we get the last one, right, which is the woman who tried to kill herself, who reflects on this and being like, yeah, it was just being, like, caught up in a maelstrom. But that's not, like, where we're going with things, right? This is just a little side thing. And, like, in a way, I kind of respect that, but I'm also like, oh, you've hit, like, a good thing here.
Yeah, no, and, like, in the end, like, it does just become, like, this weird morality where our dark magician basically, like, inverts the power of the maelstrom.
Yeah.
And makes it, like, strike backwards. Also, just, like, as a matter of, like, disapproving of terrorism, like, first of all, we do not approve of his conduct. Second of all, we at no point get any indication that he made sure to not target children. And secondly, and I think that this is the more interesting one, because the first one, we don't need to do that. The other thing is, like, it is explicitly shown that the elementary school teacher or whatever, who was, like, incidentally tweeting about the lady, the journalist, she's like, oh, like, I didn't super mean it. Like, it's just, like, it's a hashtag out there, right? Like, she is put on the same kill list as, like, people who were like, oh, yeah, no, let's get the Prime Minister killed personally.
And even just, like, people who are actively threatening, like, I'm gonna come to your house and cut you up, bitch.
Yeah.
Essentially.
And, yeah, no, and, like, our terrorist is like, go like, alright, we're taking everyone from day 3.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know, like, it just strikes me how much, like, it's a very personal story about him.
Sorry, day 4, for the record.
Yeah, true. But yeah, like, it's a very personal story in one way, but also, like, we learn really nothing except that this guy had a crush and decided to kill 380,000 people.
He doesn't... He
is a plot device.
Yeah. He doesn't have any agency. He's just like... Well, yes, he has agency, but he doesn't have any personality.
Yeah. I think that's the way to put it, right? Yeah. Which is weird, because, again, it still kind of has... It's so weird to call, like, a genocidal villain a self-insert. But he kind of feels that way, right? Because he never speaks. He's just kind of like a vague default tech dude of rough 30s age, maybe. Who knows? And I'm just like, what's up with that? Why was there so much focus on his power and, like, his ages and backstory, but nothing about him?
Yeah.
Like, it feels like a weird middle ground to me.
I don't know. I don't know. It must be, like, at least partially an accidental hit, but there is something of, like, just like, yeah, no, this is how tech people, like, think of themselves, though. Like,
yeah,
like, Sam Altman is like, oh, it's me, though. I would never kill people, though. Well, not that many anyway. 300,000 you can spare, I guess, but I would be more selective, of course, about my killings. We do not know if this is actually the feelings in Sam Altman's heart.
But we can make an educated guess.
Yeah. We're just commenting on his vibe as a person.
I don't know if that helps.
Listen, I don't know what libel laws would you even fall under.
I hope very few. It just reflects upon me that, like, I think if someone was like, this is what I think Jim thinks, somehow less insulting than this is the vibe Jim gives off, you know?
Anyway, so there is, like, something there, right? But, like, yeah, I guess the thing that, like, ends up, like, only being there in, like, sort of shadows, in, like, these, like, brief scenes where it's like, oh no, look at these, like, interesting women and their very opposed relationship to being in a hate storm. Like, there's this shadow of, like, the systems at play, but, like, we don't manage to get them into focus.
No. Because of the killer bees who are genociding.
I guess they are very much a stand-in.
Yeah, but, like, what is it stand-in for, is the question, right?
I mean, like, it is just, like...
The destructive power of social media?
Well, I mean, it is literally people getting swarmed in the end, right?
Sure.
Like, there is something there. Like, that is, like, ultimately, like, the version we, like, really see. Like, that's the version where it's, like, isn't this horrifying, right? Like, if you, like, squint and, like, see the metaphor of it, like, that is kind of what we're being shown.
Yeah, I'm just, like, I don't know, like, it all comes off as a bit hollow to me, is the core of it.
Oh, yeah. 6 out of 10 stuff.
Yeah, which, I don't know, it's bad to say that that's pretty good for what we have seen of Black Mirror.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean...
It's in the upper half.
Oh, for sure. Like, this is in my, like, top 5 Black Mirror episodes, probably.
That's really bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I don't know, like...
To be fair, I just really enjoy the humor of the PM going like, I don't know, North Korea the country, I don't fucking care. Like, his drive to survive and toss out any semblance of law and order is just like, You know, very authoritarian, but like, you go, man. You're like the one. For this one day, you are the Tory I am like rooting for.
I was gonna say, like, despite being Tory coded, I'm kind of like, he's kind of got a point. Yeah, they should try to get the pedophile killed instead. Like, that's so valid.
Yeah, no, he's very human, you know? He's fighting for his life. He's yelling at everyone. He's yelling at the FBI agent. It's called something different in Britain, but it's an FBI agent. Who clearly is offering clearly poor solutions. It all rules.
But yeah, like, I don't know. It's the thing that comes up to me is like, I can kind of understand what motivated them to make this, right? Yeah. That I think is clear. I think the actual, like, the cinematography, the, like, making of the base components of it work fine. It utilizes its time well to drive the story forward. But just not the themes.
Yeah, no, like, I am, like, inclined to defend it, because, like, it works as a story.
It works, absolutely, and I will fully agree with that.
And, like, it is one of those things where, like, well, this thematic reading sort of bumps into some difficulty, because the plot isn't quite aligned with, like, the bees, sure, they're like a thematic stand-in for social media hatred, but, you know, it's a bit of a wiggly line to get from A to B.
Yes.
And that is ultimately, like, what weakens the episode. Like, the episode's ability to, like, bring home its theme. But on the other hand, like, I do, like, appreciate a story that actually, like, takes its mechanics seriously.
Yeah,
and
I have to give it so much credit for not going, killer bees, oh my god, that's so weird, right? Like, they never do that. They never Josh Whedon it.
Yeah, no, and, like, we are just, like, dropped a ton of, like, this is clearly, like, the most unsafe conceivable way to do this.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, no, these are actually autonomous hives where they make more of themselves. Like, I straight up, like, for a good part of the episode, I thought, like, oh, no, these are just gonna be around. And, like, this is just going to be the state of things now.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like, because they did just set up, like, the bees are indestructible.
Yeah, the bees are clearly winning over the military.
Yeah.
Which is, like, you really think they would have used these bees in warfare at this point?
Or, you know, installed a kill switch?
Nah. I mean, like...
Guess not.
God, no. Like, I can definitely pet peeve a little bit on the, like, he just hacked in and now he controls the entire nation of Britain. But, like, sure, I'll allow it, because the rest of the episode is fine, and it, like, works in the story.
Yeah. It does, like, it does drop the thematic thread of, like, oh yeah, this is, like, I guess it's too interested in its, like, oh yeah, no, what if you get fucking killed over what you said online, dipshit? Like, you know, it does sort of go for this bizarre poetic justice angle, which, like, I don't think it makes much sense thematically.
I also find it, like, kind of uncomfortable, right? Because I don't think Charlie Brooker goes like, yes, those 380,000 people deserve to die. But, like...
What else is he saying, right? He's not saying that, but what is that saying? And I don't know, and it doesn't really come together. And, like, I think that is more so bad... Like, I'm not saying, like, Charlie Brooker loves for people to die. I'm saying this space of the episode should have probably been used to at least return to the theme a bit more.
It also strikes me that, like, the people... Like, we get one example of a person who did write the death to right.
True. The agent who, like, does it for research.
Yeah, essentially does it just to be like, I'm going to test the limits of the system and, like, see if I can get a response out of Mr. Murder Man.
Yeah.
Brave, I have to say.
Also, like, what's that about, though? Like,
I don't know.
It doesn't do anything for the plot, but it does certainly add, like, I guess it does just, like, add a level of discomfort.
Yeah,
it makes
you get to see his, like, last moments, essentially.
And I guess so do the, like, our point of view characters.
Yeah, it does strike me as a little bit forced, because I'm like, I kind of look at that and go like, what did you think was going to happen? I'm not saying you expected to get B murdered, but also like,
No.
even assuming the mechanics of this was not as it was, like,
Yeah, no, we're not...
outing yourself to the guy the prime
that
suspect.
seemed unwise.
Yeah, but like, the thing that strikes me, right, is that like, the one example we get of a person who has genuinely written one of these is someone who is like a carer for a disabled relative. I forget exactly.
Something like that.
And like, if you take her as a whole, I think she's fairly sympathetic. Right?
Yeah,
I don't think she should have done what she did, but like,
you know, one bad tweet does not equal the death penalty.
Yeah.
This podcast is against the death penalty.
Yeah. Especially by bees being forced through your brain.
Yeah, no. Like, if you gotta do it, like, at least do it, like, quick.
Yeah. Beat them real hard. But, like, I find that the episode is kind of trying to, like, put her in the worst light possible.
Well...
I think a little bit.
I mean...
Like, she's kind of shown to be like, I don't care, I just sent that, like, for fun, like...
I mean, she does seem like a sort of, like, she does seem like, sort of, like, unpleasant and confused, like, in that moment, but like, we are not given to understand at any point that she is a bad person, and like, as horrifying as it is, and still I have to bring it up, like, it is like straight up canonically being conveyed to us that she is like be murdered in front of a class that she is teaching, right? Like,
of children,
of small children, we are and she is our only one that is not like there who has done this like earnestly. So like I guess like trying to reach a bit here, right? The thing that is actually being said is like neither person on the end of this exchange like is like actually that bad.
Yeah.
And
like,
because if we were like, if Charlie Brooker was trying to tell us like, look at these dickheads fucking getting their due, like, he would have made at least maybe a second unsympathetic character who's like, no, I'm trying to lead a hate campaign to kill this guy in particular.
But like, I kind of feel like they are. Like, I kind of feel like all of the interspersed shots of like various like, fuck you bitch, I'm gonna kill you, like, all of those, like, and it's fair on some level, because like, that is what internet hate looks like, but we are never shown any other person who's like, yeah, like, you ruined this person's life or whatever, like, I want to kill the Prime Minister because of his new healthcare plan, my son died of leukemia, or anything like that, right? Like, we never get anything to be like, out from, these are raving hordes out for blood.
I mean, we are sort of given, like, a montage where that, like, once it leaks...
Yeah.
Like, there is, like, that vibe in the air.
Yeah, I feel like, in a strange way, the cinematic language here is kind of like, the people who have done this are vermin. And it's...
Except the people we're being shown are clearly not.
Yeah, but
so
I don't think
itself.
I don't think we're being shown enough to, like, contradict that these people are vermin, and it's not that bad to kill them. It's just a bit gauche.
I don't know. She is a school teacher who seems like caring about disabled people is a flag for good person. Surely.
You think so? But I wonder if it's just a flag for leftism here, as tying back into that sort of like Twitter era. Like, I don't know. Like, it's to me, this is the part that kind of like gets me about it. Like, we see so many bodies, but no faces, no stories, right? Like, that's the thing that gets me, is that it's very strong, a million is a statistic.
Yeah. No, that's interesting, because, like, it is very much taking the point of view of, like, the person who's, like, targeted by the mob, right? Because, like, to them, everyone is faceless, right? And, like, we are sort of given, like, some indication, like, with the teacher, that these people are also, like, quite mundane.
Yeah.
And, like, presumably not, like, actually evil. But, like, the facelessness is definitely, like, core.
Yeah, like, I think what strikes me a little bit is that, like, the killer, the incel lord, it's not portrayed that negatively, right? Like, he's portrayed as, I don't know, like, he's portrayed, like, I even, okay, and this comes down to, like, interpretation of cinematic language here, but I kind of feel like you see on his face, like, a sort of somberness when he's like, I'm gonna kill 370,000 people, for writing anon hate on Tumblr. I should probably stop diminishing the murder threats. But anyway, like, it strikes me as like he kind of gets something there, and he gets his backstory, right? And on some level, I'm kind of looking at this and going like, this reminds me of real massacres. The victims get to be faceless, and then there's a whole book, many books written about the killer, right?
Yeah.
And that, I don't know, that hits me a bit weird. I have to say.
There's like... yeah. Like, there is, like, a degree of derision this episode, like, has, like, not openly and not, like, forcefully, but there is just, like, a degree of derision for, like, the mob.
Yeah.
Right, and
I think it's very clear when, like, the news leak about how to do this, and everyone is, like, it kind of gives the impression that everyone is immediately like, time to get on Twitter and post about, I don't know, my neighbor who didn't clean his yard, or whatever.
I mean, there is, like, also, like, interspersed people, like, going, don't tweet, you idiots! Right? Like, there is, like, we are sort of, like, montaged through this extremely quickly. And, like, the mob, faceless as it may be, is also just not that present, like, in screen time.
It's kind of like it almost feels like it's a force of nature, right? Like, it's just like...
Which,
yeah.
to be fair, I do think that is, like, an, like, valid portrayal.
Yeah, it definitely can be. I don't know, it's just one of those things that, like, it is like, even with the one sympathetic portrayal it has of a person who has been, like, who, first of all, had no idea she was part of, like, a...
Yeah, and who was like, oh, I'm going to send a fun hate cake.
Yeah.
Like, that, like, you know, props.
Like, we get to know that she takes care of a disabled relative. Do we get to know anything about their relationship? Not really. Like, do we get to know about the details of what she teaches or anything like that? No. Like, do we get to know anything? Like, I don't know, it just, it's slightly uncomfortable to me the way that balance turns out between victims and mass murderer.
Yeah, and I guess it is at this point very interesting to, like, revisit the, like, police state sure is bad, like, thrust that is, like, also in the episode, because, like, I think that's quite directly at odds with, like, the derision for the mob. Like, surely, if the people are a hateful mob that is dangerous at all times and needs to be kept in check,
we should be pro-surveillance.
We should be extremely pro-surveillance.
See, the thing is with that scene is I could see it either way, because they also say, like, the British FBI guy, we should probably have looked up. I think they said, like, I thought I heard CIA at one point.
NIS, maybe. Who's to say?
Who knows?
We don't care. We don't respect Britain on this podcast.
Never. Absolutely not.
Britain.
We hate Britain.
Like, as an institution. The people average, as you might expect.
As they tend to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I think he says in that scene when, like, this comes out, it's like, the people just want to be safe, and we make them safe. So I think there's, like, it's weird, right? Because there's a touch of derision for the mob there again, but it's from, like, the...
paternalistic.
Yeah.
It's paternalistic.
It's paternalistic, and it comes from probably the most, like, iffy of the, like, good guys here, right?
Yeah. By far the most iffy.
By far, I guess the rest are actually quite squeaky clean.
Yeah, the rest of them are like, okay, they do end up doing mob, like, vigilante justice on the killer in the end. We are shown that fairly explicitly.
Yeah.
But, like, he is the face of, like, the paternalistic, arrogant state, who's like, oh yeah, I fucking love surveillance. And
we know better than
but,
you.
like, he makes excuses for it, right? So there's, like, he's, like, one of the most interesting characters, and he gets...
Yes!
He gets dropped, like, in the end, right? Because, like, they burn him with, like, oh, yeah, no, this dipshit pressed the kill everyone button.
Like, it's weird, because up until that moment, I was genuinely, like, I thought he was the most interesting character. By because, like, he's making excuses for the system, but, like, he's also clearly aware it's bad.
and
Yeah.
he's sort of like putting things together, and then like he's like, oh man, surely the state is unassailable to a guy whose code we're executing on all our bees.
Yeah.
Hit the button.
He-
Oops.
There is a tiny plague, if you will, in this episode of sometimes people just do dumb shit. Like it's very
Yeah.
idiot ball,
Yeah,
right?
no, like there is like a degree of like, oh yeah, no, this is police confidence porn, but like he
Yeah.
is really, really holding his own to counteract that.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know, like we were talking during the episode about like, oh, these burrow into people's ears. What if you just wear earmuffs or something like that? And that's us nitpicking, right? Like that's essentially
Oh,
banter.
I was trying to be productive in finding solutions for the poor lady.
That is very fair and very kind of you, Jorgen.
Alas, too
But-
many orifices.
Too many. Do you want to make that part of the episode description?
No.
Okay,
Anyway, the bee also can go through the nose.
that's true. I wanted to
I
see.
guess we need to add a body horror warning.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, so we're gonna do
I
that.
guess I figured just like gore, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
But yeah, like it's
and insects.
is that a trigger warning? I guess. I might as well.
Yeah. In this context, Alex, it absolutely is.
You're not wrong. I kind of forgot what I was talking about. I was a CIA dude.
The lady earmuffs.
Oh yeah. Like we were kind of having that joke as like a nitpicking thing sort of thing, but like I'll give him sure, right? Like who gives a shit? Like we don't know exactly how the bees work. But there are a couple of times in the episode where someone just goes, I guess I'll just expose us all to the most danger I can possibly do, and it's just kind of like, come on, like it's just like a bit too obvious in the moment that like, okay, we didn't find a natural way to convey the story forward. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
But that's probably, I think that's the harshest criticism I can give it. That's just like, this was incorrect writing. You know? Like, the rest I think is arguable.
Yeah. But yeah, so like we're left with this like very like confused sense of like the government is bad, the mob is also bad. Some people are competent, but it's better to be cynical. Very clearly shown by the smart cop being very rude. And yeah, no, like this is like the most like broadly anti-humanist Black Mirror episode
Yeah,
in
it feels-
a while at the
it
very
feels
least.
mean-spirited, I guess is the...
I'm gonna say cynical.
Sure, yeah. It reminds me... I think this is a better one than something like Black Museum in those terms, but... Yeah, it's just, like, the flaws in that are just, like, a little bit too big for me to really feel, like, fulfilled by this episode, you know, in what it's trying to say.
And like I think it's too cynical to like arrive at a like well-formed point of its own, and it is just a great shame that like certainly there are metaphors for like you know, the bees like being the personified swarm of hate.
Yeah.
But like they are also just terrifying bees, right? So there is just like this, like they are the sci-fi part that we're not interested in as like technology.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I don't know. Like, this is kind of like why I wouldn't recommend this episode. It's just because like I don't think it's bad. I definitely don't think it's a competent story. It has some genuine good moments of where it's pointing. But it just leaves me just like a little too unsatisfied. And it's like this is not one of those that just comes absolutely crashing down by any means.
no.
But it's that like last little bit that kind of hurts worse, you know?
Yeah, no, I guess in that way, because like I'm a big detective TV head, right?
Yeah.
And like it, I suppose in that way, like it does feel quite interesting because like with like especially like commercially made detective TV, usually you get like sort of a saccharine ending, right? But every now and then they're like, oh, we're gonna try to say something more like forceful, and then they are like, obviously it has to be dark, and in that you don't tend to not really get, like, something that comes together entirely. It's just like, here's some things that are fucked up. And, like, in that way, it is so very true to its genre, even though it, like, sort of leaps into sci-fi. It is like, a very, like, particular, like, oh, yeah, sci-fi noir that, like, sure, it escalates into, like, the whole system's corrupt to the top and to the bottom, right? But it does still, like, sort of, like, come back to the story of, like, its cynical noir and not really tie things together. And in that way, you know, it's deeply authentic.
It's deeply authentic. And, like, the more we talk about it, the more I realize how this laid the foundation for Black Museum, quite frankly. Like, I think a lot of the touch points are there of, like, overtly cynical, a little bit political, but in kind of a clumsy way. Just, like, a lot of very dumb decisions of, let's climb into the nightmare machine, honey. It'll be great.
Yeah.
Versus, let's execute the super hacker code. It'll go great.
To return though to, like, a bit more of a, like, broad strokes and I guess kind reading, I do think, like, this episode is also just very interesting that it, like, it depicts a very particular point in time of, like, where, like, we're starting to grapple with the notion of, like, online hate, online shitstorms. And like, it's making, like, a real attempt to, like, think about it, like, put some of it on display. And it does not get over the line. And I want to pause it for a second, that is not the fault of the episode. That is the fault of or rather, that is the symptom of a culture that has not, like, at all wrapped its head around this.
Yeah.
And
there's an argument that this episode was made too early.
Well, here's what I would posit. We still haven't. And I think in that way, like, there's something like sure, the web design looks very 2016.
Yeah.
But, like, in a way, like, there is something like, yeah, we still don't really, like, this stuff, like, very much like mass shootings in the US, like, has just sort of, like, oh yeah, no, people just get their lives destroyed, and then, like, everyone moves on. And it's just, like, it's, like, it hasn't been dealt with. It's just sort of become part of the fabric of the world. And
there hasn't been the reckoning.
No, there has not.
That's exciting.
And, like, I've been, like, reading about, like, this sort of thing, like, for a very long time now. And one thing that, like, struck me, like, sure, there's the John Ronson thing, right? Where it's, like, he's talking to the lady who's, like, made this weird AIDS tweet about going to South Africa, that blew up so phenomenally and completely wrecked her life.
Yeah.
And, like, I forget, like, what the particular thing that I read later was, but there it was, like, another woman, curiously, who also got her life wrecked in roughly this way. However, like, people didn't fucking remember. Like, you know, like, she lost her job, like, mental breakdown, the works. And then she was, like, she, like, sort of, like, reflects on it, and she's like, oh, yeah, no, I, like, talk to people, and I'm like, yeah, this horrific thing happened to me. And, like, people need to be, like, prompted to be like, yeah, I guess I have remembered that. Like, even people who were like, oh, yeah, no, fuck this person. Like, it's, like, there is, and I don't think the episode does anything in this direction at all, but there is, like, this new aspect that I think, like, adds to the strangeness, where, like, this is just, like, so fleeting, that it certainly doesn't stick in the minds of the people who, like, post like this.
Yeah, no, like, I think there's so much juice to the horror aspect of this. I think you could make, like, I think Black Mirror could do another episode about this sort of stuff. I think they could do, like, a fucking Bandersnatch-esque, like, just psychedelic horror about being caught in something like that.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they found out about VR, so
yeah,
I don't think that's gonna happen.
To be fair, VR is, like, the next level, right? Like, if you did a VR episode about this, you could hit hard.
You could.
Uh,
I have my doubts.
I have my doubts too.
I think Charlie Brooker forgot about social media after Smithereens. I think that was the last gasp. That's my reading on the situation.
Yeah. But yeah, no, like it. So it does just like strike me, like sure, like Charlie Brooker like tries to have it say, but like it does strike me that like 10 years after this episode, you know, what to do about this, huh?
Yeah.
Like it does. I guess the way in which this episode makes me quite nostalgic is in that it is actually still talking about this as if it is like something like quite disturbing.
Yeah, instead of just like an accepted danger of
Yeah.
the world as it is. Yeah. No, it's a valuable historical piece in many ways.
Yeah, even if it like chooses some odd metaphors.
Yes.
That don't like quite come together thematically. But like, you know, the one thing I don't think we can do blame Black Mirror for at all is not finding the solution to this one. Because boy, it sure would have been nice if we had gotten there 10 years ago.
I don't think Black Mirror is invested in solutions.
No.
Unless solution to online hate, striking vipers, make everyone very hot all the time and they can see each other.
Oh.
Powerful, right?
Another case for VR. But yeah, no, like, I like we did come down like quite negatively on like the sort of like coherence of like some part of the themes. And I do just want to like sort of revisit the part where this is like a quite fun like escalating detective story.
Oh yeah.
And like I do like attest at like a deep cynicism. Like this is like dystopian noir. Like
Yeah.
no question.
This feels it's like cyberpunk adjacent in some ways.
Oh yeah, no, like they have like a quick rundown in the beginning, like the bees are dead, like
Well,
and like
we don't know what's up with the actual
no,
organic bees.
there is like this very like strange phrasing that happens where like
They were dying out.
yeah, they keep saying that the bees were dying,
Which,
and
like-
do not state anything on the current state of the bees.
Yeah, because the dodo birds were also dying out, and now they're not dying out
Yeah,
anymore.
so it's more
They're
expedient
dead.
to say that. So yeah, no, that is an odd quirk of the episode too. I'm glad you caught that as well. But yeah, no, they do just like have this rundown of like here are like the dark dystopian themes of the day. And they become a bit more central than perhaps we initially think, but I immediately clocked it because this episode is like wearing its cards on its sleeve.
Yeah, it does strike me that Charlie Brooker definitely wrote or like read something about the whole bee thing like moments before coming up with this, right? And was just like, okay, we're going with it.
Yeah, also I'm pretty sure we do know what colony collapse disorder is. It's like a parasite.
Oh yeah.
So
Did
good
they
news.
say that we don't know that in the episode?
Yes, they did.
Interesting. Okay.
I guess we might not have known in 2016, but maybe
That's
on the
gonna be
cusp.
fun to research after the episode
Yeah.
finishes.
We will not edit in whether that is the case.
Yeah, no,
here's
you're-
some homework for you, I
Yeah,
guess.
you find out on your own.
Yeah.
You go to the library, you find a nice book about bees, and you get to
Yeah.
reading there, listener.
But yeah, no, like, and I do just want to flag that this is like a fun noir story that like escalates to a ludicrous extent in like a dystopian future, and in that way it does still land for me. It has some fun characters. It has some like hard-hitting horror.
Yeah, I enjoyed my time with it.
So like those are also all true, and it at least plays with the themes, but I guess this does feel like, I know we're going a bit long, but this does like feel like a premonition of like the like seasons 5 and 6, when it's just like, hey, we're gonna like mention 7 interesting things and then not do anything with them. Here they do a bit more with it, and but not enough. And in that way it is going in reverse order, at least. Very classic Black Mirror for me.
Oh, yes.
Or, I guess, a premonition of where the series is going, because, like, very little else this series has struck me that way, so it's quite interesting.
Yeah, it makes me, think more about, how we're gonna end this podcast. I think there are going to be some very interesting discussions there, but
yeah,
alas, for today, I think we are finished.
Yeah, we're going to end the season next week with a good summary discussion.
I think I've got some juice for that.
We might want to do a two-parter with how long the season was.
I could see it.
We'll have to find out.
It also feels a bit more coherent than previous or future seasons, because this is the DewatchPod Black Mirror podcast. See, I did the thing you wanted.
That's right. And yeah, thank you for listening. We have been your Dewatchers, and see you on the other side.
With a nice cup of tea.
With a nice cup of tea in the reflection zone.